Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and thank you so much for joining me today for the Friday Masterclass, where today, once again, continuing our theme over the last couple of weeks, it's all about collaboration. But more importantly, we're going to be talking with two special guests, two fellow Adobe employees, as a matter of fact, to really talk about the complete sort of collaborative workflow using Frame.io and Premiere Pro for everything from capture, where we're going to feature camera to cloud, ingest, color, editing, review, commenting, and then ultimately, how you sort of get to the publishing stage as well. And my guest will show you some of the cool ins and outs of leveraging Frame.io to do all of those things. I know we've showcased Frame here a couple times in the last couple of weeks. And if there's a theme, the theme is it's awesome. And if you're not using it, well, you should be. Or don't. Do what you want. But it's awesome. And it has, in fact, changed the way that I do any kind of review, share, anything like that. I don't typically, collaborate with a lot of people, but it absolutely has changed the way I do things. Having said that, because we've been talking so much about collaboration, I wanted to take this quick opportunity. Recently I showed some collab work that I had done with this podcast that I've been producing. And I wanted to just do a really quick shout out to my fellow editor collaborator, Amy Ferrati. She's been editing a lot of the Humans of the Creator Economy podcast that I've been working on with my colleague Teresa Au. She's a phenomenal editor. She's been using Audition for years. She's in radio. She also is a voiceover artist. And just as a way of giving thanks and appreciation, I wanted to say, Amy, couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much. And you can check out Amy's work online too. She has an incredible voice. And we can go into that another time. In any case, all right, so a couple quick shout outs here before we get started. I see we've got Christelle and Michael, Umacore, Gareth, and SLP and Daniel and Robert. Nice to see you all. All right, looking here on Behance. I don't know what's going on there. So someone needs to switch that over on the Behance side. But we are coming to you live across Behance, 3 YouTube channels, Twitch, yes, back on Twitch. I actually had 13 people watching last week. Amazing. Haven't been on there in 7 years. And LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So Utkarsh, nice to see you. Sarge Sargent, what is up? Sarge, great to see you. Wasim Hassan from Pakistan, nice to see you as well. Gino Noe, great to see you. Robbins Drones from Oregon, great to see you too. So I've got all of your chats in front of me. And I will be kind of following them as we go. Hopefully we can get the Behance thing swapped over. So without further ado, let's get into it. So my first guest, again, both of my guests today work at Adobe. They both came from Frame.io. And my first guest is Sarah Katz, someone I've actually wanted to work with for quite some time. And I thought it would just be easier for Sarah to come on and tell you all about the work that she does and how she got started. She's an editor. She's been in the biz for a long, long time. She's going to blow your mind with some incredible knowledge. Sarah, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm good, Jason. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk to everyone about the workflow that for me is a daily endeavor. So I'm really excited to chat this through.
That's awesome. And that's really why I wanted you on here, because as I said in the intro, and people who watch this stream, as I used to joke on stage, this may sound like marketing, but it's also true. I'm meaning what I say about how Frame has really changed the way I do things. And you're coming from the perspective of this is your daily life. You are truly living and breathing this all the time. And this is the thing that you've known for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because a lot of people haven't adapted this yet, or they're slowly starting to. And I've been doing this workflow for about 2 years now, and I've been editing for around 10 years. And it gives me so much perspective looking back on the ways that things could have been easier and less tedious. And an assistant editor life would have been changed. Timelines would have had more breathing room. So, I'm very excited to have adapted this workflow early. And that way, I could be on top of the curve a little bit and just really wrap my head around it and continue to grow with it. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm very excited to show you all what we do daily. I work I have a co-editor on the team. I'm part of Prod Squad at Frame.io, and we're the production team that creates all the marketing content for whether they're new releases or we are explaining features or case studies on how Frame.io or Camera to Cloud is used in different capacities than you would think. So those pieces come down the pipeline, and I usually have a chance to work on them with the team. And it's a very exciting little production crew, and we love working and what's also super cool is we're connected to the innovation team. So when we're trying to innovate camera to cloud and innovate the way that we can make production faster, smoother, cloud-based for everyone, we'll be the first to test it. We'll be the first to work with it, tweak it. So it's really a cool role and a very unique role.
That's awesome. And I do want to give you a little separate shout out too, because the work that you and the Prod Squad do, I mean, your edits are, they're really stunning. I mean, some people got to see them as part of the Max keynote. And of course they can watch them online, but it's a look, it's a style that I think you and the squad have kind of created this particular look that I think now, not only our own users, but just out in the world of editors, actually try and mimic that look. So really, kudos to that. You do some incredible stuff. Can't wait to see what you're going to show today. But I must also now bring on our next guest. You know him, you love him. We've had him on the stream here with me several times before. The one, the only, the man who has openly admitted that he stole my lighting concept and tried to replicate it. He's told me this publicly. We all know this. Sean McDaniel, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Jason? Hello, Sarah. Good to see you both. And yes, I did steal it. I think I needed a little bit of color in the background, but you know, you're always an inspiration, Jason. So I appreciate you.
Ah, well, you are very kind. Thank you so much. So now listen, as I've said over the past couple of weeks, I love, first of all, thank you both for joining me today. It's wonderful to have you. This is great because, as I've said, it's wonderful for me to sort of take a step back, do some commentary, and really let the two of you show the real world process. As you both know, this is what our masterclasses are all about. And as I say to everyone watching, if you're new, you're really going to hear some sort of, well, we're not deep diving into every single aspect because we wouldn't get through everything. But what you are going to see is really how it unfolds, how it works, how Sarah implements this workflow that she's really mastered over time and continues to refine, and how Sean as well is part of that sort of production process. So I'm going to let you two kick it off. And I think, Sean, we're actually starting with you, right? And we're going to sort of start in the camera to cloud space. And maybe you could give just a quick, brief overview for those who are sort of unfamiliar with what that's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fastest and easiest way for me to explain Camera Cloud is that it's the fastest and quickest way to get your files from set to post. A lot of times, you know, getting footage to your post-production teams can be rather difficult, and it requires a lot of transcoding and shipping out of drives. And, you know, a lot of times that stalls the creative process. But, you know, since Camera to Clouds came along, it's really helped editors connect to the set. And we actually say we're connect record buttons to editors, and we mean exactly that. So when you take a shot from your camera, a proxy file, and now actually with the new Red integration, you're actually able to upload your full res files up to Frame.io, so that your your editors and your assistant editors can start working with that media right away. Now, when Camera to Cloud first came out, you know, I was there at the launch of it happening, and seeing all those cameras running around with little Teradek 655 cubes sending out all these video signals to go up the frame was absolutely incredible. But at the time, it was really limited to a certain set of cameras that had certain specifications. But since then, Camera to Cloud has evolved to access so many different cameras. So, I mean, starting with Teradek, that kind of the Cube 655 or the Teradek Serve 4K definitely supports the high-end cinema audience. But you know, we've since evolved, and we've teamed up with Atomos, and we have a Atomos. What I have here is an Atomos Ninja with a Atomos Connect module connected to a DSLR camera. Oh, there we go. Connected to a DSLR camera. Yeah, a little bigger, but it actually gives you a little bit more mobility, a little more flexibility. Obviously, folks that already have Atomos devices can take advantage of the Atomos Connect if they have a Ninja 5 or 5 Plus. And then, of course, the Shogun Connect, which is another device. I don't have it connected to a camera, but I do have it here to show you all, because that's nice. It's a big, beautiful device. So these are enabled for Camera to Cloud, as well as the new Zato Connect, which is coming out from Atomos. These will let you send your proxy files up to Camera to Cloud, up to Frame.io, and still internally record your full ProRes or RAW formats that you want to record in internally on the device. And then lastly, if you're working on a mobile phone, we teamed up with Filmic Pro. So we have a direct integration with Filmic Pro. If you have a Pro account, you'll be able to connect your files directly to Frame.io using that as well. So I could jump into actually uploading files. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, let's do it. And that's one of the things. I'm so glad you kind of gave the brief overview, because as we discussed previously, I think when you were on the first time, Now, and then I think we had just maybe introduced the Filmic integration, or maybe it wasn't even out yet. I can't remember, but
I think it just came out at the time.
It just, right, at that time. So I think the point that what's wonderful about this is this is all expanding now. It's becoming more and more accessible. You know, Sarah mentioned like initially, well, not everyone's going to have access to a Red. You don't have to be on Red anymore. You don't have to be on the super high end. You can be doing this. And the Atomos machines, particularly in the pro space, for anyone who's shooting, I mean, I have one. They're more accessible to people who are doing sort of high level work, or any level work, really. If that's something you need, connected to be on set. I love that concept. Then now we have lots of different ways to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but what it did though is it allowed more cameras to be connected to Camera Cloud. You know, you used to have to have an SDI out with a record trigger, and a lot of those high-end cameras did that. But HDMI, DSLR cameras, all of those can plug directly into the Atomos device, and you've really opened up a whole new world.
Love it, love it. All right, so let's see how it all unfolds. Now, we just did a few tests seconds ago. We're doing this in real time, just so everybody knows. So this is not pre-cooked. Sean's going to shoot. It's going to appear. I'm going to make some comments here and there as appropriate, but this is all happening live for you here.
All right, so I've got the device and stuff already connected, so I'm just going to roll a take here. Everybody can see. Actually, I'm going to roll it. Sorry, wrong device. I'm going to roll it on the actual Atomos device here. I want to roll a few takes. You guys can get a nice little look at the other side of my office. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording, and then when you pull up my screen here, FrameIO will actually let you know that a new file has been added to the account. And there you go. And as you can see, what we're looking at right now is the folder structure. Where's my mouse at? Is the folder structure of how Camera Cloud organizes your files. Now, everything's organized by shoot date. And you can see we'll go into today's folder. Inside of that folder, any device that I have connected to Camera Cloud. And remember, Camera Cloud is not just for video. You could do this also for audio. And if you want to upload like a lot of files at once, or drives, you can use some of our other integrations with FDX. Will allow you to upload hard drives as well. But for instance, like I said, if you have video or any other components that are connected to Camera Cloud, they'll be organized in kind of this folder structure. So if I go into the video folder, I'll be able to see which device was here, and boom, generates a thumbnail. And now I can actually click on it and play it. And boom, there it is. That's the clip that I just took. And now, Jason or Sarah, either one of y'all, if you want to actually leave some comments on there, maybe a couple annotations, but they show up instantaneous. The minute you hit send, they pop right in. And that's vital. I mean, if you're on set and you've got different departments kind of looking at this, you've got wardrobe, you've got your camera department, you've got different departments on set that are actually looking at this footage in real time is valuable. I'm also trying to think of Sarah, you have access to these files immediately. Look at that dark. Yep. I just turned it on. I didn't really do any settings.
Yeah,
on
sure. Okay. I can still be critical. Yeah, no.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. Like, you can find those pain points right as you're shooting. You can add or take away certain elements, and you could be anywhere around the world. You don't have to be on set. You don't have to be on location to do this. But yeah, I mean, this is the quick look at the magic of Camera Cloud.
And I'd love to add that sometimes from a post point of view, right, I love getting these files because it means that I could be on set or I could be across the world. It doesn't matter. I'll get a notification to my watch on my wrist saying that files are being uploaded, so I could go check them out. I do have a memory once from being on set, and we were shooting a transition from it was going from one scene to another, and it was going to really slide from one to another. So the timing needed to be perfect. And while they were shooting it, they said, Sarah, can you match up our first take with your cut and start to find the right one from day one? This is day two that will help match this seamlessly. And so I tag the director, and he was able to then see on his phone which take is the one he should be mimicking all the way on set. I was in a back room cutting, and we were able to communicate this way. So it's not just notes to me, it can be notes to the people on set. And it also can be a way to avoid video village and just have, yes, it's not 100% live, but it's pretty damn close. So the setup will still be there. The lighting will still be there to sometimes I'll point out, we need this to be a little lower. You're seeing the exit sign in the back. Let's make sure a little bit lower. And those notes don't have to just come from people giving me feedback. I could give them feedback. And it's a really cool tool.
It's amazing. And I want to point out again, like now, I've mentioned just for transparency, I'm on fiber here. I don't know what your connection. Sean, you're on fiber too, right? Where you are?
I'm not actually.
You're not on fiber.
I've got pretty decent internet though. I've got 200
Okay.
up and down, but
Okay.
you know, fiber is definitely going to outrange that. But you know, you don't really need a whole lot of bandwidth in order to upload these files. And if you're having internet trouble, you've got options to upload your proxy files or do smaller files if you need to upload to Frame. You could change your bit rate on these.
I love that.
So if you have limited internet, especially if you're on location, that's usually a pain point as well.
Sure.
You know, you can always use a MiFi hotspot. You can use your phone as well. But there's also, like, you know, if you need to do larger files, you may want to consider getting one of the larger antennas. And we work closely with Scalera Digital and First Mile Technologies. They actually provide on-set internet, almost like little portable antennas that you could throw into a backpack or throw on a C-stand on the set, and you've got internet for your production. And one last thing, if you run out of internet, or not run out, who runs out of internet? If you lose internet,
run out of internet. Yes.
If you lose internet on set or wherever you're at, your files queue up. So you don't have to worry about like going, well, I need to re-upload those myself. It'll queue up on the device, and then once you have internet again, it will continue recording, uploading from where it left off.
Nice. Okay, cool. So, all right. So that's kind of the basic primer. Again, they got to see how you captured. It's instantaneous. I see it almost instantaneously. To Sarah's point, made some comments, made some markups. They appear right in your timeline via marker in your frame panel. Where do we now go from here?
So my process would be as follows. If we can share my screen, that would be awesome. Okay, so here is a demo Premiere project for all of you. I'm sure it looks quite familiar. In previous versions of Premiere before we were acquired, you'd have to download a plugin, but beautifully, part of the window tab, you can go straight to Frame.io. Why am I not seeing it?
They put review with Frame.io. I always do that too.
Yeah, that's it. I was looking for F. Sorry. It is automatically there for me. If you don't have it, that's how you can click and log straight in. And I'm already in our C2C Fun Times. This is Sean's folder where the Camera to Cloud device shot to. So while I got a notification when the clip went up, I was waiting patiently. So let me show you guys. It mirrors the folder structure. It looks exactly like the Frame.io window we just saw. So I'm going to click through and find the same clip that has all these comments and notes. And if I want to go directly to the comment, dark, that's right there, right? Or I could see that you drew on the screen. Beautiful. But what if I want to import these comments, right? That's a huge thing that I hope people are familiar with. If you're not, it's super helpful because I can now know the exact point in which director might want me to be grabbing from, or they could be avoiding something by putting that note in. Obviously, I think you all can think ahead about what this would mean from notes. If I'm uploading a cut directly from Premiere, which I started in, and I upload it to Frame.io, which we will demonstrate, anyone else's feedback I could import directly into my timeline, which I will show you how to do right now with this clip. So if you go to the comment button, we have all the comments right here, right? I'm going to actually go out for 1 second. I am going to show you how to download first. So it's highlighted, right? And I can click download, import file. If you have a choice, let's say you're doing a batch download and it's not time to edit and you're just in Premiere doing other work and you want to start batch downloading, but it's not its time yet. So you could just click download, but let's do import. So you have a bunch of options. I am going to choose the original, but this allows, if it is Apple ProRes, if it is a different spec, you can purposefully choose an MP4. You could choose whatever your heart desires. So I'm going to.
And by the way, whatever you choose, you'll still always have the other options available to you, right? So if you choose MP4, the ProRes will still exist. If you want to connect to that later. Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So I am just going to download this file, which brings me to any folder I can choose. I'm just going to put it into documents right now. And when it's downloading, it's actually, I'll bring my screen over. It downloads and it imports. So I don't have to then go find where I placed it. I could choose a folder structure that works for me. And I'm going to just bring this off screen right now. This clip exists. And when I bring this down right here into my timeline, you see that there are markers, right? What are those? Very exciting. All right. So if we go to the comments, we can now import those comments.
I'm going to go.
Yes. Did someone
No, that was the playback on the video.
Oh, that was the playback.
That's
Cool.
Sean
Awesome.
talking.
Beautiful. All right.
It's so real. We got lost in what was happening.
I got distracted. I wasn't looking. Okay, so here were the comments that you guys were able to see on Frame. So I'm going to import these comments, download comments. I am going to save comments as markers. As you see, there's an upload as markers as well, which we will get to, but that makes common sense. Save comments. Why are they not importing? Oh, because the markers are there.
It's because it's okay. The markers are on the clip.
So, but why are they not?
Because when you upload a sequence, then they'll be linked.
That's it. We did this backwards. I'm sorry. We did this backwards, but that's okay.
It's okay.
I am confusing myself. I am excited and racing ahead. All right.
You are embracing the live stream.
I'm embracing the live stream. We got very excited.
No apologies.
I didn't do this backwards. Here we go. So I am going to put a little text on here, because what is a piece without some text? And I am going to call this, I'm going to just create a few little fonts here, and then Frame IO demo 224. All right, I think this looks beautiful. I don't know about you guys, but I would like to set an in point and an out point right here. I'm not going to add any slate from up top. And I am going to go to this beautiful little upload button. Now, Sean, would you like me to put this in a separate folder from the C2C clips?
That would be great. Here, actually, I'll go ahead and create an export folder for you.
Because I don't want to mix up the camera to cloud folder structure. And that's something that, I'm now very closely paying attention after I did something backwards. So don't want to mess anything up.
I've already, I just created it, but just to give context, I went ahead and just created a new folder. So just hit new folder on the top right, and then I could just type in a name, exports, but I'm not going to do that because I already did it. It's right here. So now all Sarah's going to need to do is just refresh her panel, and then she'll see that exports folder, and then she could throw that file right in there.
Yep. So here's this beautiful exports folder, and I am going to upload. Now I'm going to add this active sequence because we want those markers to appear this time. And so add the active sequence. I'm calling it the name that I named the timeline. You could obviously change it. You have different spec presets. I'm going to stick with web, but if you wanted to do a ProRes because it's a final, you can. I'm going to do from in to out because for me, that's what works, but you can select the whole sequence or just the work area. I am rendering it to my desktop, but you can choose any folder. I am exporting markers as comments, but I did not make any markers as comments, but that is a choice. And the way that a classic marker works, you could write a whole comment in there, and that is the choice here. So I'm going to call Frame IO marker. Very creative note. There. So, and I want to keep a version on my desktop, which for me is always very useful because I want to make sure that it's reassurance for me. I have a version for me. I have a version for Frame, but to be quite honest, it's a waste of space. Yeah. So let me upload this right now.
And for people who are unfamiliar, so this is basically launching Media Encoder in the back. It's probably jumping, and we don't see your taskbar, but it's jumping in the background, launching Media Encoder, queuing it to Media Encoder, and then it'll upload, but you can still continue working, which is one of the other nice benefits of this.
I love that. And I will say this is the slowest part of the process. Is right now, Media Encoder. Yep. That is the only time where I will then be able to take a beat. And it's actually helpful. I don't know about a lot of you, but when I'm editing more complicated sequences, it gives me a second to just refresh my eyes. Yep. But as you just saw, the upload was ridiculously fast once it actually went there. And if you see, there's a comment right here already because of the marker in which I placed. So it's preparing for web. This just takes a sec. Sean, I don't know if it's, see, we're good to go. And this button allows it to be linked to my markers on my timeline. If I undid that, it wouldn't sync up with me and appear for me, but I would like for things to appear. So I'm going to keep it synced up. And that was audio again. Beautiful. Thank you so much. And if we go to the comments, that is my Frame.io marker that I wrote in Premiere. So it's a pretty smooth transition. I know we did it a little bit backwards, and I apologize, but I think the general gist is working. But as you see, Sean already created a comment, which is amazing. So that means that I could now import this comment.
Yep.
And it appears for me. And here we go. So this is right here, and let that appear. And that's my Frame.io marker. And then this one's Sean's. And the note is right there, which I love.
And to point out, because some people might not be able to see, and the hover state, you actually see the full marker there. You can also see it inside the panel, of course, but it's nice that you actually have the sort of hover over tooltip style indicator in your timeline as well.
Personally, Frame.io is not always open. So to be able to have that moment where I could hover, and there are times where I want to unsync it, right? Where I don't want the notes necessarily there. And that's where this button is super handy. Then it's not so tied together. You have a lot of different choices with that. And what's really cool is that this is a V1, right? So if Sean wanted it to, he wants there to be do we have a clip that's lighter? We don't. So if I was going to brighten up this clip.
Right. So I don't know if you actually saw, but I did do another take, and I adjusted my camera a little bit. Because I was going to say, if you're working in Premiere, and obviously editors are going to duplicate their sequence, you can actually duplicate your sequence in Premiere and still keep that connected. So I was going to say, Sarah, if you wanted to dupe the sequence and add that new clip in, you can show version stacking if you wanted to.
Love to do that. So I am going to import this same process we just saw. Okie dokie. All right, and I am going to duplicate my sequence, which I am actually extremely tedious about. I do it for the littlest of things because you never know when something's going to not be what I need. So let's see here. Is this much lighter? Oh, Sean, good job.
I didn't adjust my ISO.
Yeah, you didn't have any audio in it, so it doesn't need to give me a heart attack every time. All right. So, and this is a little bit of a shorter clip, so I'm going to change my in and out, but I do want to upload back to frame because we do address this note. All right. So let me go back.
And I was just making sure that first clip's still, it looks like it's still connected. You're good.
Seems still connected. Cool. So upload active sequence 001, all the same setting as before. I like it. It's going to work for me.
And now people will notice, because Media Encoder was already launched, it's significantly fast. It is that startup time. I must say, there's just no hiding it. The startup time for ME can be slightly rage-inducing at times. I
am in agreement.
Things have to launch. They have to load. It's a thing. But, it's a little maddening at times.
It's a little
But when it's open, it's like instantaneous. That's awesome.
Exactly. And Sean's so great. He's really helping in the background to make this a very interactive experience. So right now we're version stacked. And I don't know if any of you have used version stacked within Frame.io, which I'd love for us to demo in a second, because it is a freaking awesome tool.
It's one of the coolest things that we do, for sure.
It's just so freaking cool. So I want to go to my comments. Sorry, wrong button. And it's so much better. Thank you. But I want that to be imported so that when I refer back to this in the future, it is there. And right now I do have so much better. Thank you. That was just imported because these sequences were linked, even though they were version stacked. But that's not all. Sean, can we see version stack within Frame.io from a web browser point of view? Because for producers who are giving notes and feedback, especially with color correction, there's some very interesting features to version stack.
Yeah, so version stacking, again, is a really great way to keep your project organized. If you've got multiple edits and revisions, you can put those in a single stack so you don't have a bunch of different clips sitting on your project. So a good indicator to see that it's a version stack is a little number there, but I can always change the order of this stack if I want to. I can also remove certain versions. But if I go into the clip itself, I can easily toggle back and forth which clip I want to look at. So that's super handy to have. But I could take this a little step further and actually compare those versions side by side. And I'm sure a lot of wheels will be turning in the audience of the potential of what you can do with this. But what's really nice is I can see both versions. You can see I have the lighter version on the right, darker version on the left. If I have more than two versions, I can change which one I'm looking at. And I can also A and B my audio. So if I have two different voiceover tracks, maybe a different music track, I could throw this in here, play it side by side, and toggle it. And to even take it a step further, if some of you are familiar with Frame.io, we do have something called review links, so that people that aren't directly invited to your account to access your media, you want to invite them to actually leave some comments. So you can create a review link. And this is great for clients and stakeholders, so they don't have to maintain a username and password. They can just access that review link and leave comments. But the point I was trying to get at with that was that version stacking is available in review links as well. So your client or major stakeholders have access to this, which is really, really amazing. So I really love this feature. I use it all the time. It keeps everything so organized and tidy on my project.
I will say, Sean, to add, because you just sparked all these things that I love about the review links, which seems like such a little thing, but the control is amazing. Okay, so for version stack, you can actually turn that off. So if I have a bunch of different cuts, but I only want the client to see the most recent, but I don't want to get rid of all those version stacks. It's very important to my team. I can create a link that only has, so I can prevent downloads, I can allow downloads, look at all these options that can happen. And you can do all this also after you've already sent out the link. You have such control over all of these features. And yeah, so this is all amazing stuff. You can add people if they're already on Frame, or you can just share the link right here.
And by the way, Sarah, what you were just pointing out, the fact that you can change some of those settings after the link has been set. In other words, a lot of people, if you've sent links, time-based links from YouTube or something, if you make a change, it's like you have to issue a new link. This, you can send the link out and then, I meant to only allow version 3 to be seen, or I forgot to enable downloading, or whatever it is. Those can all be changed after the fact, which is nice.
I love that.
I was actually changing the content. Sorry.
Review. So review link. Yes, that's exactly. And in my mind, someone sends out a link they're not supposed to, that it wasn't really ready yet. You could just kill it on the spot. But also as an editor, sometimes you're like, where is the person who's reviewing this? I want to know if they've seen it yet. And you can see how many people have watched it. And that's super helpful for me personally. There are times if they have a Frame.io account where you can see who's watched it by the video itself. But I love when I'm sharing it with clients that I have that choice. And that way I also know, I might have gotten approval, but did it get widespread approval yet? Well, does it have 3 views, or does it have 15? And as an editor, it gives me some control in planning my day, because I know I can guess where people are in the process. Or if a link was really only supposed to be shared with one person and I see that 15 people have watched it, that's an issue. Maybe I should kill the link. So I personally, I'm sure people can think about all different horror stories with sending links to the wrong people or sending out the wrong cut. And this ability of control for me is something that I absolutely love.
I love that. Yeah, and and as you're kind of going through this, Sean, what I want to point out too, and maybe we can show this at the end, or when we're sort of, I don't know what you have for sort of a final that we want to show, but building upon this, now I'm forgetting what the term is. So you have share for review, and then you have share for presentation, which is yet another option that you have when you're ready to show the client. Here's our final underscore final underscore final. But it can be branded. There's all these options. We'll get there. But that's yet another one of those really, it seems like an obvious thing, but it's so good. And it prevents a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, before Frame came on board, I had access to Frame. I was still using YouTube, Unlisted, or Vimeo to do all of these things. Dropbox, I think, because they had just added commenting. And it was a drag. It was a drag, right? If you're trying to do it on your phone, it's a drag if you don't have Dropbox installed. It's like all these limitations. This makes it so painless and easy. It like once you discover all of this and so many options too, it's like how did you ever live without this?
Yeah, and also these links, you can, if you send yourself the link, you can watch it on Apple TV. So there's times where I'll watch a cut down and I want to be in a different space to freshen up for myself. But also there are times where I didn't have enough time to finish screening and I'm hopping on a plane. Well, I can offline on the Frame.io app on my phone so I can catch up on the plane. And to be honest, that actually helps a lot when I have to screen larger files. So there's awesome. Just so many different capabilities. Their mobile app is just as convenient. And it's something that if I'm working with a client outside of Frame.io, I need this. A great example is my sister got married and she had a wedding video, a Vimeo short video, and I needed to give them notes because that's just the way it goes. And it was just too complicated to do it in email after working at Frame for over a year at that point. So I ripped the video, I put it on Frame, and I sent notes that way because it's one thing for me to read notes as an editor from someone that isn't time-stamped. It's tedious, but I can no longer give notes where I can't draw on the frame itself or give a range-based comment for this exact section because I don't have faith that someone's going to necessarily understand what I'm talking about. And so it just allows for communication. Forget speed. It's clearer.
Yep. And that's it, right? It's getting that message through. What you're actually trying to communicate is the hardest thing. And I find that was always the problem. Really, to your point, it's not even about the speed or the immediacy. It's just understanding what people are trying to tell you, like in a timely fashion, but specific to something, to a moment in time in the video. It's so much easier. And you mentioned the mobile app too. That I don't think gets enough play. And of course, this is accessible in the, I know it's in the App Store. That's what I use. I'm assuming it's in like the Android store as well, or should I assume it's in the Android store?
So the iOS app is currently only for iOS
users. It is iOS only. Okay.
Yeah. We've definitely, I know there's probably some Android folks in the audience that are probably like, where's the Android app?
Yes.
We definitely hear you. And our team is definitely got that on their mind. I just don't have any definite dates of when that will happen, but we hear your feedback. Continue to give us that feedback if you are sharing that with us. But yeah, right now it's for iOS.
But if recommend to anyone, sorry, Sean, who's again, you all have access to Frame.io. Well, I'm trying to remember. Is it 100 gigs 100. You get instantly? Yeah, with just the CC individual plan. So you already have 100 gigs worth of storage in Frame. Download the mobile app, Frame.io. It's so awesome. I think I've done one thing on a plane, Sarah, but to your point, like I've been in the car more times than I care to admit and had to review something largely for some of these podcasts that I've shown on stream. And that's where it happened. And it was amazing to be, and it plays so well. It's actually shocking how well the playback on a mobile device, sometimes in not the greatest, 5G area, 5G, whatever.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like it really just works.
It's so great. And also for me, I like to take some space from a cut sometimes, but then I'll be outside or waiting for something and I realize this is the right headspace. I've taken enough space from the edit that I can watch it down somewhere else. And the fact that it, as you're saying, it does look beautiful. It's something where I could write notes just to myself if I want to for later. It's a really useful tool, but with Camera to Cloud, I know, as you were saying before, it's not, we were both saying this, not just about speed. And for me personally, there's a lot of times where there will be an interview that was done and we didn't actually set up the question correctly. And as an editor, you'll know which section is important. They could still be on set and you can have them do a pickup and you're there. So it's not even about the fact that I'm getting the footage quickly. It's the fact that they're still there. And it doesn't matter if I have months for the project. Yes, I'm sure a lot of you could think about a marketing campaign where drives had to be shipped overnight and the amount of time that would have just been saved in those 24 hours. Oh, I hear you. That is the obvious reason for Camera to Cloud. But I think the pickup option, and because editors do have a vantage point that people on set might not have. There's also a lot of commotion and hustle and bustle. You don't really know what's going on. And the fact that you can give notes right then and there, and the people who are a part of that project, they'll get the notification. You could send them a text too if you feel like they're not going to look at it, but they'll know exactly where in the interview you need that question redone. I just find it to be a way to connect myself to set because I don't always get the opportunity. And while I'm on set, I can already start working and see if things are starting to flow. And that is not necessarily even about speed either. It's about making sure that what we're shooting is worth the time and money. So the benefits is a type of workflow that we just haven't become accustomed to yet. And these are just from the fields in which I work in. I work primarily in marketing. I'm sure a lot of people here work in a lot of different types of video fields, and you could think of different ways in which camera to cloud combined with the accessibility that Frame.io has and the app. And I will say that while the Premiere panel is super duper helpful, and I think it's great, I am someone who likes to have a separate web browser open as well, so that I can be uploading files and playing around and moving throughout different projects. I am more of a frame in a different window, not because the panel has improved tremendously in the last 2 years. And I think it's smooth as can be right now. You guys saw it. There wasn't glitching like if you remember in the past. But I am someone who is a web browser person. And I will mention the Frame.io transfer app is my buddy. Because while I can download bulk files, what if I'm working on a different edit and I'd like to download in the background? Or what if I exported a heavy duty file and I want to upload a few at one time? I could directly upload it to a folder, and it's a much smoother process. I am not a coder. I don't know why, but it is. And Frame.io transfer allows you to choose where you want to download it as well, which is obviously a blessing.
I love that. So we've got about 14 minutes to go. And I wanted to just kind of touch upon a bit more. So maybe sort of head into kind of the finishing this process phase. I really like all the things you just said, though, about how this is a new sort of workflow, and being on set and having that sort of like interaction capability that you just didn't have even a few years ago. Not in any realistic. I mean, yes, we could do that a few years ago, but now it's so much more accessible to so many more people. And how that's kind of changed everything and how it's going to continue to change things. But moving towards kind of the end of the process here in our last couple of minutes, when you're sort of in that now sort of final delivery, or rather doing your final export, reconnecting master media. This is something which I think gets sometimes a bit lost. And Sean, because you mentioned how your Atomos is capturing ProRes 422 HQ or whatnot, you're leveraging maybe LT or proxies in the cloud. What does that process kind of look like now when you're connecting those masters back before you export via Frame your final for review or presentation?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important part is making sure you keep your media organized, especially if you're working in a proxy workflow. You need to make sure you've got a proxy folder and you organize those very similarly, if not identical, to your OCF or your hero media that came from the set. That's going to be your first step in making sure that everything is going to be organized, because, you know, it can... I've had it where things will relink and it's completely the wrong thing, and you have to redo your whole sequence, and it's an absolute nightmare. So that's the first step. And Sarah, if you have anything to add on that, I know that you'll be an advocate for that as well. But in the end, once you've got your proxy edit, your offline edit, I should call it, and you're ready to actually do a transform or conform process, you simply will just need to unlink your media with inside Premiere Pro and then relink it with the OCF or Hero media based on your folder structure. Once you do that, your media is swapped out with the stuff that's from the camera, the higher res media, and then you can do your final output from there. And all that you can really do in Premiere Pro. But if you are working on other external, sometimes people go over to Resolve and they work in other applications. You can definitely use an EDL file or an XML file to connect those back together. But that's really just swapping out media.
And that is worth pointing out too. We're not opposed to mentioning those names, those terms, those competitors. Sure, like you have the Frame panel in Resolve as well. So as a plugin, I guess. So you have that capability, export the EDL out of Premiere. You could still do the relinking of your masters there. Everything that you're trying to achieve can still be done, which I think is, again, speaks to that flexibility that Sarah's kind of been talking about this whole time, which makes Frame so valuable and, really speaks to why we brought it into the Adobe family in the first place. Real quick, Rachel Elnar has given you a little shout out, Sean, so wanted to pass that along to you. Oh, and what is up, Ashley Brookins? Dear friend of mine, Ashley Brookins. Very nice to see you. Hi, Ashley. Yeah.
I will say one little thing that I think is worth mentioning. As we have started to be integrated into Red cameras, which means we are shooting Apple ProRes, you can choose to have Apple ProRes being sent to Frame.io, part of Camera to Cloud as well. So with that, I personally find that for a lot of exports, that is usually that when you have OCFs, you're converting them to Apple ProRes. So now we already have them as Apple ProRes, and that happens to be a great option for a lot of social posts and a lot of various other situations. So if relinking is stressful and tedious, which I do understand, and I will say one other little tidbit is when you are moving it over to Resolve, make sure your effects transfer over, because sometimes that's the one little hiccup, though Resolve is a very simple relinking process. So and with color correction, it's a beautiful process as well. And I know that a lot of our users do that. So just be tedious about those little details. But I do think that the Apple ProRes files really do the trick for a lot of production situations as well. So that has been something that has been growth for us within the last year, is that we don't need to necessarily transfer over to an OCF. Alyssa Rooney is our cinematographer, our DP, and she is just top notch. The stuff is beautiful and doesn't need heavy color correction always. So it's a really great option.
That's awesome. Hey, so real quick, so Ash is asking, I'm going to pull this up on screen. And now this is actually related to something we were talking about last week. Now this does tie into a bit of Frame, but so she's using Productions, she's cutting a feature with Premiere Productions right now. They have their shared production project file on Dropbox, and she's asking if that's what's recommended. And the last couple of weeks we've been talking about, in fact, we had people on from LucidLink as a sort of shared storage option, shared media option. So Ashley, I would say you can certainly use Dropbox for that sort of main production file in that context. Again, for something like a feature, just in terms of speed and accessibility, and having used LucidLink now a couple times, that might be a more efficient way for you, particularly because it can also just handle all of the streaming of media very, very quickly, inviting people into the media, having access and things. And of course, this works in you could theoretically also have it, I guess, stored somewhere in Frame too. But Dropbox is okay for that. There are better sort of solutions. But if it's working for you, great. But I would definitely check out LucidLink. And that kind of brings to mind too, we talk a lot about sort of using Frame in this context of you're working on a project and you're uploading the edits, and of course the Camera to Cloud raw media lives there. Something I think gets lost sometimes is you can also just you can upload media into Frame for your project as well, and have that shared too in the folders.
I back up every Premiere project, every Premiere production project is backed up to Frame in case something happens. We actually work off of LucidLink. That was a good shout out. That is where we store our media and work off of this Premiere project that we were on right now with the media being downloaded. Yes, I downloaded it to my desktop. I am sorry. That was out of speed. And I didn't want to go through our Lucid folder structure and deal with all that.
That was perfect. That was perfect.
But the project is living on Lucid, and the speed was still there, and we really do enjoy using that as our SAN to connect all of us, so that when our team, which is remote, we can all access the same footage, and we don't have to relink all the time. And Frame.io is how we share it. We're not working like the Frame.io plugin is not in Finder like a Drive the way Lucid is. So
correct.
We need.
Yeah, and that's why I think for productions specifically, and this is one of the things we were covering too with LucidLink is right. Your machine sees it as just as a mounted drive, so nothing in terms of I need to put some media here and hope that Sarah has access and Sean. It just works like a drive. You don't even think about it, which is why it's so seamless and just sort of happening in the background. Dropbox, it's a little, I guess it sort of works the same way, but again, it wasn't designed for that. So it works, but there are slightly more efficient ways. I love, look, I'm the first to say, I use Dropbox. I love Dropbox.
Well, I mean, right inside the Premiere panel, you can actually upload your project file directly within the panel.
Right.
I don't know if any of y'all saw that when Sarah was hitting the upload button, but
here, actually, you show it on her screen real quick.
Yeah, if you've got it up there.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you got project file right there at the bottom. So when you click on that, the project file just is right inside Frame. So if you're already working in a Frame, yeah, there it goes. If you're already working in a Frame.io structure and you need to just send up a quick update, let's say an editor, you're working, across the globe, and you've got one editor editing at one time and one starting at a new time. Well, put your project file right in there. You can download that in 2 seconds and be up to speed on where the rest of the team's at.
I will say, Ashley, that I am in a productions folder structure as well. So that was the project within the productions. But just heads up, not that it makes a big difference, but
right. Full transparency here.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm explaining.
Just explain. I love that. All right. So listen, we're in our last couple of minutes here. So any additional tidbits, things you want to share about sort of this collaboration workflow? I think what's really cool is, one, we got to see this, first of all, just going through kind of this whole process, seeing how this works. Now it's so integrated into Premiere. One thing we didn't talk about, but of course, I like to mention, I've shown it, I think, once before here or twice. It's also integrated Frame.io into After Effects. So, if you have someone else, as I'm sure you do, Sarah, in your pipeline who's doing some of the motion graphics or visual effects, they've got Frame in there too. So there's a lot of, I'm sure, back and forth and sharing and commenting and reviewing and, leveraging those projects as renders back into the Premiere timeline. I mean, there's a lot of capability there sharing between those two apps as well in Frame.
So much. And we are linking between After Effects and Premiere, and that we're on Lucid. So that also allows that. So we are fully connected on so many spectrums at this point. It's kind of incredible. I couldn't have imagined doing this years ago. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I think about like when I was in AE and some of the stuff that this would have saved, and having everything linked across the board in 360, not having to go to an office per se, but sometimes you would get a call from a producer, where's this one file? And you're on vacation. And imagine just being able to whip up your laptop on vacation, give me 2 minutes and I'll just figure it all out for you. And that world of being on the go and being able to hire the best talent, not the local talent, is really amazing.
I was in the mini DV stage, so I did login capture. So it was trying to get your media into the computer and having to set those in and out points and then let it roll. And, it's a great time to go get lunch and maybe a coffee, but, it's a lot more efficient now with the Camera to Cloud.
Yes, Sean, but did you do HDV? And did you embrace it as the be-all, end-all of what would become the HD standard?
I embraced HDV as much as I did 3CCD chip cameras back in the day. So, DVX100 was my first mini DV camera.
A lot of viewers on these channels who will be very familiar with the DVX100 for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking some of the other comments here. All right, awesome. Yep. Okay, yeah, we've got some nice confirmations from people about what you were just describing. Ashley says, thank you. Awesome. Terrific. And Gino Marbella is asking, now this we kind of covered before, and I don't believe that's the case. So dynamic links in this context, they don't apply here sort of with this sort of Premiere Frame. That's not what we're doing here with Frame integration between After Effects and Premiere. This is assuming things are separated. I maybe you can have them, but that's not.
I'm not dynamic linking to Frame.io, but I'm saying that my project on Lucid, while I'm connecting and uploading and dealing with my media on Frame, the projects itself on the back end. So if I have effects that are working, they're going into my Premiere project, which I'm uploading my active sequence to, which is printing that work that is connected, living on Lucid, with all in one bubble. That's essentially what I'm saying here.
Yeah. And I think we showed this, I can't even remember now, but yeah, I mean, if you're, again, this is the benefit of having, and actually this was discussed from Dave Helmley, who on our team, who works very closely with Lucid, depending upon where you store your media cache and certain things. So some things you want local, some things you want on Lucid, certain preview files and things. This does enable you to have a project that theoretically could have active dynamic links. Again, this is kind of leveraging, this is outside of Frame, leveraging the Lucid Link storage concept, your SAN storage. But yes, that could be achieved. And then you can still use Frame for all the other elements that you already discussed. That has nothing to do with the dynamic link side of things. So yeah, just gives you a little bit more flexibility.
It allows the post-production team to be very connected within Lucid, and allowing the approvers, and everyone needs to see everything, not know how it's working on the back end, but it all comes up there and their notes can be brought back in. And that's really the part, is connecting these teams in such a great way.
I love that. And just before we go, Kyer 2021 says, and then came the nightmare of AVC HD. So
so glad all that's behind us, and we have a whole new world set of things that we have to figure out and continue to innovate upon. So
you know, it is amazing how quickly, you know, we discussed this, I think, a year and a half ago when, was it Blackmagic or Sony? Who had the 16K camera? Was that Sony?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know that it ever came out, but I think it was at IBC in 2020 or 2019. Anyway, 12K, 16K, whatever, you know. Okay. At this point, it's just, can I watch it on my Apple TV when I need to? You know, that's all anybody cares, or on my phone or wherever it is. But we've made it so much easier now to capture, to share, to collaborate, to work with others wherever you are, regardless of, you know, location, and in many cases, regardless of having, you know, you don't need studio level connectivity to be able to review and comment and share and work with proxies and kind of get these things going and be on set and have feedback sort of in a real time enough essence where you know, well, yeah, keep doing what you're doing and keep moving forward. And these are just some of the amazing benefits of, you know, having Frame integrated into Premiere Pro and After Effects. Sarah and Sean, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on the stream. This has been absolutely awesome. Getting a lot of love in the various chats here. So again, thank you so much. And to everyone watching, I hope you have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Sorry we have to go, but it is that time. So we will see you again on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.